This is the Puck Junk Podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Puck Junk Hockey Podcast. I'm Sal Berry, and with me is Clemente Lisi and maybe Tim. We'll see if he comes. He might be here, he might not. No promises, but fingers crossed as we record this. Anyway, we are going to talk about Fanatics Fest, and we're going to talk about 23-24 Synergy hockey cards. So, Clemente, how are you doing? You've had another long weekend in I know it was like 3 weeks ago, the National, 4 weeks ago now, I think almost. But yeah, how you doing now?
I'm good, my feet are recovering and it's just spending the weekend with hanging out with Jay-Z at the 40/40 club and spinning records with Travis Scott. I'm a little tired.
Yeah, opening $1,000 boxes of Panini Legacy or whatever. No,
Yeah.
wait, not Panini. Sorry, Tops or Fanatics or
Yeah.
whatever basketball, football product. I don't know. See, goes to show how much I don't know about other sports cards, which is kind of funny and sad. Like, there's a whole other world out there, Sal, besides hockey cards. But yeah, no, that's good. So we'll definitely talk about Fanatics Fest, but I got a lot of questions, and if Tim shows up, he'll probably have a lot of questions and her comments. But speaking of comments, I want to share with everybody a review that we got recently. I'm always saying if you like this podcast, please rate and review us. Well, we got a review. It was a 4-star review. That's 4 out of 4 on Apple Podcasts for our national recap episode. And somebody with the username of GOTGRS, is that Gotgers? I don't know. GOTGRS via Apple Podcasts said, another solid episode. This was a very fair and honest review of the National. It was great to meet Sal and Clemente there. So whomever wrote this review met us at the National. And now I feel like maybe I know we both spoke with this person, but it's not like first name, last name as a username. It's a username, and I'm not sure who that is, or maybe it's a first initial, last name. I don't know. But hey, thanks for the rating and the review. Every little bit helps. Every time we get a review, we get pushed up just a little bit more, like in recommended podcasts. So that helps. And the other thing I'm going to say is I was checking our stats today. I try not to look too much at the stats because, as Wayne Gretzky once said, stats are for losers. But we hit number 57 for hockey podcasts in the United States. And you go, 57? Well, that's not even in the top 10. That's not even in the top 25. That's not even in the top 50. And I'd say, well, yeah, you're right. But you know what? All of those higher ranked podcasts were either stuff like 32 Thoughts or Spittin' Chicklets, or they were team centric podcasts that have like huge followings. So the fact that this humble little hockey card podcast can not only crack the top 100, but crack the top 57. Is that 57? Is that a milestone? Upper 60? I don't know.
The way I look at it is if the 56 podcasts in front of this one are not hockey cards, then we're number one in hockey cards because you got to because you're right, because the team podcasts are a different type of beast,
Right.
and a lot of them, like you were saying, a lot of them are backed by the Ringer or ESPN or these really big behemoths are going to get a lot of eyeballs or in this case, ears. So yeah, I totally agree that it's very good.
Yeah. So, hey, I'm happy about that. I'm happy to report that. Thank you, everyone who's helping this podcast grow. And you're helping it grow by listening to it, by subscribing to it, by writing a review, by interacting with us on social media or asking us questions or any of those things. All of that helps. Engagement helps, right? It's not just about I always say support this podcast by buying a t-shirt at shop.puckjunk.com. But it's not just about that. That helps offset the costs, but still just support and listening and interacting. That's huge, man. That's how you grow a following. And so I'm always in a growth mode. But anyways, I think we should talk about the elephant in the Javits Center over the past weekend. That was Fanatics Fest. I almost went to the Javits Center. I used to work for a toy company and toy fair, is in
Yeah,
the
that's right.
Javits Center,
That's
and
right.
I was gonna get sent. I was so excited because I used to
Mm.
be a really big toy nerd, still kind of am, but
Yeah.
from a distance now. I kind of just I could look at the Star Wars figures and go, "Wow, those are really cool," without actually having to buy them. But the toy company that I worked for, they were going to send me to Toy Fair, and I was so excited about this. Then we got bought out, and then the new owners were like, "Yeah, we don't need to send our web designer to the Toy Fair. That doesn't even make sense."
Oh
And
boy.
so
Yeah.
that was the end of that. So my dreams got scuttled, which was too bad. So take it away. You were there for 3 days. I know you got a lot of thoughts, but I think the first thing I'll ask is just what was your impression overall now that you've had time to digest it and write a couple articles about it already? One for SCD, one for Puck Junk.
Yeah, my impression now that I've been to it and I was there 8, 9 hours each day, whatever it was for 3 days, is that there's good and there's bad, okay? And in a lot of ways, it felt like just 2 separate shows going on at once, which was one was the 2/3 of it that was this interactive fan experience, and then there was that 1/3 that was just the what they were calling the hobby hall, which is basically the card show part. And I know Michael Rubin wants to 10x the hobby, but it's difficult to 10x the hobby when you basically have 2 things going on at once, and I think there was very little mixing. So people came from all over the tri-state area, and if you were into cards, you went to the card part, and if you had kids or wanted to do other stuff, you interacted with all these features at the NFL, NHL, NBA, all the MLS, all the major leagues, MLB. They all had these gigantic areas where you can do stuff like at a fan fest, and that was cool. And then amid all this, not chaos, but amid all this, kind of 2 things going on at once, you had like celebrities like walking through or running through, or whatever. It was very in that way that made this really unique in that all of a sudden, like you could be hanging out in the NFL zone and all of a sudden Gronk shows up and people are just hanging out with Gronk for like 15 minutes. Now, you couldn't pay for that experience. You just had to be there when this happened. And it could happen at any moment that like Tom Brady comes over and starts throwing footballs at kids, like stuff like that. And that made it really interesting and it made it exciting. And so that was the good part. The bad part was that the card part was super happening, but it was very separate from, even though it was in the same hall, it felt very separate from the other stuff. And I think I was talking to a lot of people who were saying, yeah, I'm not into cards. I'm just here for the WWE stuff or the UFC stuff, which by the way, WWE and UFC, they win the prize for just having the best stuff, the best interactive stuff. They had wrestlers showing up and doing meet and greets for free, autographs, like whatever, and then the WWE Raw had this whole stage set up where you can like walk out with the smoke and the music, and they recorded that. And I mean, I haven't watched wrestling in decades, and even I thought it was great. And Gronk did that because Gronkowski was a wrestler for like a year, and so he was in character for like a little bit, and that was fun. And I thought, but WWE has done stuff like this on their own, and with Fanatics, by the way, in the past, so that makes sense. And this was like a great thing for the leagues, but I don't know, I was speaking to some of the organizers who were working at Fanatics, and they basically were like, "Yes, we have to better integrate the hobby stuff into the interactive stuff." Like, there's no reason why at the NFL booth there wasn't like free packs of cards for kids. Like, they weren't doing that. It was almost like nobody got the memo about the 10xing the hobby part. It was like, let's just do this. And I think they're doing this show as a template, as a like, what are we going to learn, and how can we make this show better in the future next year or at the regional shows they want to do. They want to. This is going to be like traveling circus essentially. It's going to go all over the country, like Comic Con. I mean, it's Comic Con for sports, and so that was the thing. And so it was interesting and different, and something that I can see not changing the hobby a little bit, but for example, the National can never do this. They wouldn't have the money or the space to be able to pull this off. Only Fanatics can pull this off because it costs a fortune. I don't know how they would have made a profit on this. I think they spent a lot of money. They got a lot of hype and buzz on social media. I mean, people I know who don't even like sports were telling me, "What are you doing this weekend?" I'm like, "I'm going to Fanatics Fest." They're like, "Oh, I saw that on Instagram. I saw it on Twitter. I mean, it was everywhere on local television. It was everywhere. Saturday was the busiest day. Like the walk-ups on Saturday, I was told was huge, and they're approximating about 75,000 people for 3 days. The national gets 100,000 over 5. So do the math, right? Like it's a success. They're going to deem it a success, and I give them good grades. I think overall.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if it was 75,000 over 3 days, yeah, that's a huge success. I mean, even if it was 50,000, I mean, I know the more paid admissions, the better, but like getting that kind of foot traffic to something like that is a big deal. Yeah, I mean, with shows, it's funny because like I've been to enough shows. I've only been to a few. I'm trying to think of something where I could say that I went the first time. I remember going to the very first Blackhawks convention, and it was like, there were things that they did right, there were things that they did wrong, and then it took them like I think by the third convention they really kind of caught their stride a little bit. But I think at that point I was kind of burnt out of that particular thing, only because you mentioned like the interactive things, and I'm not trying to compare this to like a Chicago Blackhawks convention because that's like way smaller. Although that had gosh, I want to say that by the third year they had like 10,000 people, which, for a team specific, a hockey team specific fan fest was pretty crowded, given the space, but they had like the interactive things. Like I know in one of your articles you talked about getting to shoot the puck into a dryer like Sidney Crosby. And that's hilarious. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that is fun, and that's that people equate that sport to fun, you know what I mean? Like it'd be like I imagine the NBA probably had some sort of like free throw or hoops or something, cuz that would be pretty easy to set up, a little less room maybe that, or a little less. You don't need hockey sticks, you just need a basketball and that, like at the arcades where they have that like hoop that you shoot through, the
Right.
arcade one that gives you the tickets or whatnot. But like I think stuff like that is fun. I mean, it's not the kind of thing that I would enjoy as an adult, but as a kid, I'd be like, "Oh, I want to try this. Oh, I want to try that." It's like again, like when I go to the Chicago Wolves hockey games and they'll have like shoot 3 pucks for $1 and you can win a prize. And like the dollar goes to charity, and then they'll give the kid like a team photo, and then they'll have like a radar gun that tracks how fast you're shooting the puck. You know what I mean? And that line will be long, something to do before the game starts. So I like this sort of thing. I think it's cool. I gotta ask you, like, how did Tom Brady just show up and start throwing footballs and not get mobbed by a bunch of people asking for his autographs? I mean, did he have like an offensive line of like
Yeah,
bodyguards
yeah,
there?
no, all these athletes, the big names, including rappers, actors, other celebrities, were basically like there was like an army of police. I should say state troopers because the Javits Center is state property. So
Hmm.
the NYPD is not policing it, but state troopers were. And so all of a sudden you'd see like Peyton Manning walking in like a wrestler because he's walking and he's surrounded by bodyguards slash state troopers,
Hmm.
and then all you see is like hands going up with phones taking pictures, and you couldn't get that close because they were walking him to a stage or they were walking him to the NFL area, and then they kind of closed it off. And then if you were in that area or you were pre-chosen or whatever was the situation, everyone was different. Then you can partake in that. And so yeah, you could rub shoulders with these celebrities and with these athletes, but it was fortuitous. Otherwise, the only closest you can get to them was at a panel discussion. And I have to say, the panels were really fun. For 3 days, it was really cool to hear stories that you never heard before, not just about the hobby, but about their playing careers. Like Tom Brady did like an hour where it sounded like he was a motivational speaker, and it was interesting to hear about his career, his future, what he thinks of the NFL today. Like just it was really interesting because as you know, when you go to hobby shows, you don't hear from anybody. No one talks. Everyone is just buying cards, and I get the dealers want you to be on the showroom floor to buy cards, not to be at if you're at a panel discussion, you can't be buying cards. I get that. But when you get that much volume, like I've been to card shows where I've seen dads dragging their kids, and their kids are kind of bored. At this show, you can say, "Hey kids, let's go do this interactive stuff. Let's go to the NHL area and shoot pucks for like an hour and hang out." And then indulge dad on this end, or maybe I'll go on my own and you can stay with mom in the interactive section. Like families were going because it gave everyone something. So if your kid's into Pokemon, there were Pokemon tables, dad's into sports cards, and then maybe the kids are all into, running the 40-yard dash or throwing a football or doing the WWE Raw entrance or shooting the puck at the dryers, the Sidney Crosby challenge or whatever that is, or go to a panel talk, and so I think that that is interesting. And I think that the hobby is big enough that a show like this can coexist in this larger ecosystem. I mean, we know from the past couple of years that there's no shortage of people who want to go to shows, and card shows are popping up all over the place. But card shows haven't changed in 40 years. I mean, the same shows I went to as a teenager are pretty much the same today. You just go, and card shows are great, don't get me wrong. But this gave people something else. And look, when you're Fanatics, you have the money. That's one. And two, you have the relationships with the leagues. So the leagues are going to be like, yeah, we'll be there. Like, sure, we want to be there because they want to play ball with, pardon the pun, with their partner. So it
Mhm.
makes total sense. And then Michael Rubin was around, and made me think, I don't know much about Michael Rubin. And I was able to do a little bit of research over the weekend and interact with him a little bit and see for myself what this guy is like. And he was on a panel discussion as well, so he did some talking as well. Like when you're at the national and the national organizers are walking around, people are not running up to them to take selfies with them. People don't even know who they are. You ask anyone at the national, what's the names of the organizers? They'll draw a blank. But Michael Rubin is like a celebrity himself. And in a lot of ways, it felt like he was throwing a big party for himself and fans. And it really much felt like that. And he said on one of the panels, he barely graduated high school. He was not good at sports. This is like a huge, like, hey, I made it. Like, I'm cool. I'm hanging out with Travis Scott. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. I'm opening cards. I'm making deals here. And that can get a little old and kind of annoying, I'll be honest. But he has the money and the vision to do it. And it's like, look, if you want to go to the show, go and do the stuff you like. And if you don't want to go, don't go. Now, it was also the kind of show where you can literally go for one day and you'd be fine. Because the card area was about 250 tables, and that's manageable in one day. And the interactive stuff didn't change over the course of 3 days. It was the same stuff. So you can literally go for one day. Now you would go for multiple days because maybe there were signers that you wanted to meet or get autographs from. Maybe there was a panel you wanted to go to. Like the Rangers had a panel on the New York Rangers had a panel on Sunday. So on Sunday, the place was like full of Rangers fans. And then like on it was a Friday, the Knicks had a panel. So all these Knicks fans showed up. And you can tell it wasn't the same people because they're all wearing jerseys. Like who the fans are. So it was very stratified that way. You went for the stuff you wanted to go to. Like Comic-Con. Like at Comic-Con, you can't go to everything. See, I was covering this. So it was hard for me. I was running from one end to another because I didn't want to miss anything. And frankly, I did miss things. And then I would come home at night and download my notes and then go on social media and go, oh, because it was all over Instagram, all over the internet. And so there were clips everywhere of people that had come in or things that had happened. So I was able to piece together some things just because it was documented on video. But it was just a crazy time and something really unique. I can see a situation in the future where this will also get boring because the interactive stuff is fun, but the leagues basically, I was told by some people that were there that the NFL part, for example, was super cool. But that at every Super Bowl they set that up basically. So if you go to the Super Bowl, you've seen that. Now most people don't go to the Super Bowl, so you've never seen that. So that's the cool part. You get to see things that the leagues didn't just come up with this stuff like at the last minute. They do these at Fan Fest. They do these at at various other league events or whatever, a Super Bowl or an NBA Finals or whatever they do. And so some of this stuff was just basic. Like the NBA part was just like you said. It was a big hardwood floor with hoops and a net all around it, like kind of like an urban, playground thing. And then Kevin Durant shows up with his gold medal, and people get to like see him up close. That's pretty cool. Like that, that doesn't happen when you go to a card show. Even when you meet a signer, it's like 3 seconds. Hey, I'm a big fan. Oh, thanks for coming out. He signs your photo and you walk away. That's it. In this case, you could have had some longer interactions. The kind of funny thing is that the kind of the middle ground of all this is the expo in Toronto. Like, I remember when we went last fall, we basically hung out with some of these guys because,
Right.
and because it was quiet, whatever the situation was. The expo has this happy middle ground where they have some panels. Obviously, you've moderated some of them, and you know they've been doing something different for a long time because it's Canada and it's mostly hockey. I guess it's forgotten, but you know, Fanatics is not reinventing the wheel here. They're just creating a third way, a different path, something totally different. And everyone there was telling me, we're not competing with the national. This is not the national. The national's great, and the national and this can coexist together, obviously. And if this becomes an annual event in New York, great. I just don't think it can happen 3 weeks after the national. It's a little rough, I think, in terms of the demand, because obviously the same people were there, the same YouTubers are there. I'm not going to name people. We all know these people are like we see them all. The same people go to everything. The negative stuff was there were some glitches. There were long lines. I mean, I'm not going to lie. So some people were waiting 45 minutes or an hour to get to an interactive feature. And that gets old. Kids were kind of, so that gets, it's tiresome. If the show gets bigger, it gets more complicated because it's like, well, if it's 70,000 people over 3 days, now what if it's 200,000? What if it becomes like Comic Con? I'm told Comic Con, you have to reserve panels in advance. You don't just show up at Comic Con and hope to get everything done, right? And you can't do everything. And so that's the thing. As they grow, if they grow, and if it becomes popular, there's going to be some growing pains. Some people on social media were complaining that some signers were leaving early, and people were getting refunds, and it was just the kind of thing that was like, people had bought tickets online, but like on the app, and the app was super great. But then, like, apparently when they got to the show, they still had to go to like a ticket office to get like a ticket. It wasn't just like you
Ah,
couldn't just scan your app. So buying the ticket in advance didn't give you a virtual ticket. So things like that, and obviously that happened because maybe it was like a last minute thing. I mean, this thing got all
mhm.
organized in the last 14 months. And I say 14 months, I mean like the moment that Michael Rubin went to Comic Con and said, "Hey, I think we should do a sports version of this." You know what he reminded me of? He reminded me of a guy that I'm sure all of us have worked with, which is some boss says, "I got this great idea." And you're like, "Oh no, like this is gonna be hard to do." And then most people, there's no follow-up, so it doesn't never happens. Michael
Mhm.
Rubin, if he says something, everybody runs and does it. For example, when he said, "I want to do a Comic-Con for sports," he went to Comic-Con New York and he hired the guy away from there to work for him.
Right.
So, like, whatever he wants, he gets. He's got the money and he has the relationships.
So I
And
got a couple
so
questions to
yeah.
ask.
Yeah, sure.
Was it true that people were lining up to get Michael Rubin's autograph? Because I saw people like posting pictures of getting their like badge signed. Were they really getting his autograph? Because they were like bragging about it on Twitter.
So maybe some people did it. I did not see that, but I did see a lot of people that whenever he was walking through, people were taking his picture or taking selfies with him for sure. And like they wanted to be seen with him or they wanted to like interact with him like he was a celebrity, which
Hmm.
is really weird because he's just a CEO of a big company. Eh,
Right.
If I ask you to name the CEO of Coca-Cola, nobody knows the answer to that. So it's weird. It's like a celebrity. It's like having a celebrity CEO, or because he's always out there and doing a lot of promotion and doing a lot of panels and talking a lot. And he reminds me of other people in the hobby that we know, like a Gary Vee, like those guys who are constantly
Hmm.
talking. But this guy actually owns a big company that is in the hobby and changing the hobby. So I didn't see anybody getting his autograph, but I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, they were treating him like a celebrity, which I found pretty surprising because I knew very little about him other than, he's been to the national and he's talked about the hobby. And, this all started 3 years ago when they bought Tops. And it's been a steady kind of
Climb.
climb, and they've been gobbling up more and more of the hobby over time. They've done some good things, they've done some bad things, they've done some puzzling things over time. And I do think that it's very much a spaghetti against the wall thing. Like, let's just try it. And if it works, great. If it doesn't work, hey, it doesn't work. And we move on. And the rest of us are all kind of figuring out where are we going with this.
Well, it's that willingness to try things, though, right? Because a lot of times people don't want to try things, and you kind of have to have money to try things. Like if he loses $100,000, okay, you know what he'll do? he'll just raise the price of baseball hats 50 cents next year. And then guess what? He'll make that back in, 3 months, right?
Right.
So it's good to try things and see what works. And, sometimes people don't want to take that risk, especially like big companies who can only think 3 months at a time. They're only obsessed with quarters. Like, oh, well, our Q4 earnings took a hit because we did Fanatics Fest, and they're kind of looking at it like, well, if we spend 20 grand, we need to make 20 grand back right away, or we're at a deficit and then it's a loss. And I think with like these leagues, like they need to see it, the term loss leader,
Mm.
like, okay, so you spend 30 grand. I'm talking about like one of the leagues doing a setup, at their booth, right? Trucking in all these things, setting it up, having employees running things, doing stuff, all those things that it would take to have like your hockey setup or your football setup or whatever, or your WWE stage. I mean, WWE gets it because they're all about theatrics. So, it's like, oh, yeah, lights and smoke, no problem. How many smoke machines do you want us to bring? Because we have many, right? So,
Right.
like, I think the other leagues, like, they need to embrace that and say, you know what? Yes, we're going to lose 20 grand on this, but guess what? Those kids are going to grow up and be season ticket holders, or they're going to buy jerseys, or they're going to buy hats, or they're going to buy trading cards, or they're going to subscribe to ESPN Plus or whatever, right? So
Yeah.
I think that's a good thing. But you brought up something earlier that I want to ask you about. I want to ask you about that Rangers panel because I understand that Ty Domi hosted it, which I kind of find, I don't want to say funny. I don't know if he does broadcast work. I've never heard him talk. I could think of like other ex-Rangers who would be like great at like moderating a panel, like a Kevin Weeks or someone,
Yeah,
but
or even they could have gotten someone from like NHL Network, a former player. You're right, someone or even Lundqvist, who was on the panel, but he wasn't moderating it. It was an odd choice for sure.
it's also an odd choice because Tim pointed out that they photoshopped a picture of Ty Domi in a Rangers jersey, but he had Maple Leaf sleeves.
Right.
It was like a mashup.
What I recall is that when he left the Rangers, he would score against the Rangers all the time, and this guy would score like 9 goals a whole season. I'm like, he's got 3
Mhm.
against the Rangers this year. But, so Ty Domi, yeah, it's funny. I haven't seen him since he was a player. So I was quite surprised at like what he looked like now. Glad I had not even thought about Ty Domi in so many years. And yeah, he moderated the panel with Matt Rempe and Lundqvist and Mike Richter. Now it makes sense that Rempe's on there because he's kind of an enforcer too. And then you
Mhm.
have the 2 goalies because Lundqvist, we should remind everyone, is a Fanatics like ambassador. Has a contract until and Richter was signing, so he was in the building. And so the panel was similar to the other panels they had, which they did with the New York Giants football team, the Knicks. They did one with Jeter, and David Ortiz. And a lot of the athletes that were there are broadcasters, so it kind of makes sense that they would be in this public space. But this was a kind of an interesting panel. It was about looking back at their careers, and then they were kind of all trying to give Matt Rempe some advice, and Ty Domi was it was interesting. Like I said, I like the panels because it gave me something else to do. Because let's be honest, we've been to card shows where 250 tables, you walk around some more, you get some food, maybe you run into somebody I mean, you wouldn't be there for 8 hours, but it's like, oh, there's a panel, it's gonna be 45 minutes. Let me go to that. And so I like that. But the Javits Center is a huge facility. It's like multi-level. You couldn't do this at the IX Center, or you couldn't do it at even in Chicago because you'd have to section off entire areas that would be for tables, obviously, and that would be a money loser. You know,
Well, actually, let me just cut in real quick. When they have Anime Central at
yeah. In Rosemont, they do it in
and
Rosemont.
Rosemont, and
Yeah,
I want to say it has like it has a lot of people. I don't want to say 100,000, maybe not that many, but you don't really see this. But when you go upstairs, and then when you go off to like the side, not like in the room where like they have the Chicago Sports Spectacular, but like off to the side, and then even like off to the side where they have like the VIP area.
it's like a ballroom stuff
there
there.
there are
Yeah,
ball there are
yeah,
multiple
yeah,
ballrooms. There
yeah,
are
yeah.
more than one. There's like a whole carpeted area, like a
Mm.
whole carpeted section that you don't really see, but you go in there and they'll have ballrooms that can seat, couple hundred people for like a panel discussion. So when you think of like the show floor,
Mm,
that's just like the retail area and artist alley and the corporate booths and stuff like that. But then there's like a whole other part of the expo set or the Donald E. Stevens Convention Center where they have stuff like that. So yeah, they could actually do panel discussions. I mean, when they did when Wizard World Chicago did an afternoon with Kevin Smith, the film director, it was like
right.
in one of those areas. And like when Tops did their panel discussion, it was like in one of those like little, it was like a smaller ballroom. There is room for that, but I know what you're saying, right? Like
Yeah.
you'd have to, it takes a lot. And then you're right. Like when you have these things, they're kind of separate from each other. They're
Mm,
not always within visual distance. It's almost like you have to go over the river and through the woods. Oh, I got to go up this escalator and down
yes.
this hall and past this bathroom. And oh, wow, there's a whole other wing of stuff. And now I'm in like this area with like the panel discussions.
Right.
Did anybody say anything memorable that stood out to you just on the Rangers panel? Not to put you on the spot, but anybody say
No,
anything funny or memorable or poignant
no,
or
not really. I mean, at one point
no?
they were talking about like Lundqvist's twin brother and like
Okay,
what
cool.
he was doing. It wasn't so exciting. But I will say I like Lundqvist. He's better on TV when he's talking about games.
Hmm.
Mike Richter, great guy, but not the most talkative person in the world. Like in terms of like being funny. So no, it wasn't really funny. And I never really heard Matt Rempe talk before, at least for that long. So I don't know where he's from, but he had like he was down a New Yorker, obviously. So, so nothing memorable. I mean, the best panel of them all was a New York Giants one because they got to the point where they were talking about the kind of pranks they were pulling in the locker room
Hmm.
during their playing days. And some of the stuff was totally, totally crazy. It was almost like they forgot they were in front of 2,500 people talking, and that's what I thought was great. It's like, oh, they're telling like war stories about how they were pranking the assistant coach, or they put X-Lax in donuts, and they put like this rotten fish in someone's car. I mean, like stuff like that, like in the engine, and and people are just laughing. They couldn't get enough of these stories, and it was like Michael Strahan was on that panel. And Michael Strahan is on Good Morning America. He's a broadcaster. He's a he does NFL on Fox. He's got his own game show. Like you need a personality like that to be able to drive a conversation. I think you're right. I think like a Weeks or somebody else could have been good, but the truth is maybe, I mean, maybe even getting a Wayne Gretzky to do it, though he's not, it wouldn't been the best moderator. But in the end, I just was appreciative that they were doing these things. They were doing the panels. I thought that was fun. They had a whole autograph section like they do at the National, and that didn't interest me. In a lot of ways, it was like the National, like where the card show ended was the autograph section. It was almost like, oh, I've been to this show before. There's like, oh, this is where the autographs start, and people are lining up for the photo ops, and they're making announcements, and people are waiting in line. I mean, that wasn't anything special. The good thing about the card show part was they actually had hockey cards. The dealers brought whatever they wanted. I mean, David Adams and Steel City had Upper Deck product that they didn't tell them they couldn't bring Upper Deck product. I mean, so I had a couple of thoughts when I was there. I thought, well, what if Fanatics, organize the National? I mean, as long as they let everybody play ball, like as long as Upper Deck can be there and Panini and everybody else, why not? They maybe in 5 years they could organize it and they would maybe add a different touch to it. Because when the organizers changed this year at the National is the same. It doesn't matter who organizes it. It's like
Right.
it's the same. On the back end, maybe there's something different going on, but on the front, when you're walking around, it doesn't look any different. And so, or I was talking to some people at Tops. I said, what would be interesting? Like I know Tops only makes stickers; they don't make cards for hockey. I go, but what if you tell the NHL, hey, let's do this interactive Sidney Crosby thing at the Expo? That would be killer. Like in Toronto, to have the whole like hidden pucks at the dryer, and then
Mhm.
you're giving people like free pack of stickers or something.
Mhm.
Tops would be at a show that normally they ignore.
Right.
And they were like, "Oh, it's a good idea." I'm like, "You gotta be kidding me. Like, what do you guys talk about behind the scenes? I'm just spitballing here. I've been at the show 5 hours, and I'm thinking of stuff, and then and what are you guys doing in boardrooms all day? Or is it very top down? It's like, oh, if Michael Rubin didn't think about it, then we don't do it. I don't know. But I don't want to get in the head of what Tops is doing behind the scenes. I'm just appreciative that Tops, that for many years did nothing. Let's be honest. Topps for like 15 years was like doing nothing different. I mean, really, they did Topps now, and then that's all they did for 15
But
years.
Topps. Look,
They didn't take risks. They didn't take
if you
risks.
look at the history of Topps, I mean, look at 1989. Okay, when Upper Deck came out,
Yeah,
and by then, Score,
Fleer
Fleer, Donruss, and Sportflix
and
were all
Leaf
making
even.
cards,
Yeah,
right?
right, right,
Okay, maybe Sportflix, that's kind of weird. Those are like an outlier. But
right,
if you were to rank the baseball card sets from 1989, Topps would not be in the top three spots. No
right,
pun intended, right? So
right.
Topps was very much like, well, this is how we do things and we don't need to change it, right?
Correct,
Like,
correct.
you look at like 82, 83, and 83, 84, they didn't make hockey cards in the United States. They're just like, well, hockey doesn't sell, so we're just not going to make hockey cards. You know what I mean? And
Right,
then like,
right.
you look at like 90, 91 with hockey with like other companies where they're like, well, okay, now Upper Deck and Score and Pro Set are making like a Series 1 and a Series 2. What does Topps do? One series. What does Topps do in 91, 92? One series. What does Topps do in 92, 93? One series. So Topps has always been very slow to change whatever they're doing. They like the status quo. It's only when the market forces them, when they go, oh, other baseball card companies are doing a Series 1 and a Series 2. We should do that too. Or, oh, well, they're doing more than 198 hockey cards. Maybe we need to like get with the program a little bit. So for them to like put themselves out there, was the Sidney Crosby thing, was that the Topps thing or an NHL thing?
That was an NHL thing, but because Fanatics is doing the jerseys for them this season, they had all the team jerseys on these mannequins all around it. So Fanatics very much has an interest in what the NHL is doing, the NFL, the NBA, I mean MLS, because they're all partnered together in the apparel division. And so that transcends into everything else too.
All right. Well, we are now joined by Tim Parrish, aka the real DFG on Twitter, who is now gracing us with his presence. So, Tim, I guess I will ask the obligatory "How are you doing today?" question.
Can we skip that question and just get right to something else?
Sorry. Okay, so we were talking about Fanatics Fest. Clemente said at 10x to Hobby, it was great. He had a great time. He can't wait to go next year. In fact, he's going to go to all the Fanatic Fests around the country. He's going to go on like a world tour of every Fanatics Fest from London to the Bay.
That sounds.
That's not really an adequate summary of what just
I was going
happened,
to say
but
that sounds quite expensive.
Yeah, no, we're
yeah.
kidding. Just to summarize what Clemente's been talking about for the past 30-ish minutes, it was a good and bad show. There was good stuff, there was bad stuff. They took some risks on doing some things that they normally don't do at shows or that are normally not done at shows. And Michael Rubin was signing some autographs. I did ask about that. I knew you'd want to know. So,
Mike, okay. Was he only signing white index cards?
No, I mean, I didn't see this, but he was signing the badges on people's lanyards. But people were taking selfies with him, like I said, and I think I don't want to repeat what I said, but basically it was like he was throwing a big party, and in a lot of ways, he's probably earned the right to do that. It just seemed very much like the parts I was starting to get a little tired of was the language, the hype. Everything was hyped so much. Like, look, this is already a pretty fun event, and if you have eyes, you can see what's happening. Like, no need to hype it. I mean, I get the hype it in the marketing materials. At one point, I remember I got like an email from the PR people because they were constantly sending updates and everything else. And it was like, I think in the last day, the email said something to the effect of like, and don't forget to visit like the biggest card show in New York history. I'm like, okay, it's 250 tables. New York City has had card shows that were equally or maybe bigger than that. Like in the history of cards. Like, don't try to sell me this is the biggest card show ever to take place in New York City proper. It's just not true. But it was the hyperbole, right? The hype machine is constant, and it's in a lot of ways I was saying how the WWE area was really good because WWE is entertainment. They're used to hype, but that's all an act. That's all part of what they do. And it's like, don't need to sell me or like, for example, I didn't mention this, but I'll mention it here. Like during the panel discussions, whenever the moderator would come out, or the MC or whoever was, with the mic would say, "How's everyone doing?" And people are like, "Yeah," they're like, "No, I can't hear you," or like,
God.
"What's going on?" Like just to get the crowd excited. And then all these cameras. I mean, they had an entire army of people just do the show was made for social media. This is a social media show. Like, if you're at the National and you're on social media, you can follow what's going on, but you have to really work at it. They basically had an entire social media team. They hired Getty Images to provide photos. They were constantly churning out content. So you could be home because they knew that if you were home and you saw this on a Friday, you'd say, I got to get down there. I got to see what this is about. Like, that's what this was about. It was like, I got to be part of this party. I was more like my feet hurt now. That's what I was thinking by Saturday. By Saturday afternoon, because I'm running from one end to another and interviewing people and doing all kinds of stuff. I'm working. But even if they didn't make any money, they made money because it was a big advertisement. When they have this in Pittsburgh on a smaller level and in Orlando, which are the next two stops, and then they want to do this every year in New York, it's going to gain momentum for sure. I mean, people have FOMO. They want to be part of something. And if you can by chance end up in a section of the show, or the event, I should call it, where Tom Brady shows up, hey, that's awesome, right? Like, that's something you're never going to forget if you're a kid. I mean, it was great for kids. I will say the interactive stuff was great for kids. I will say, though, it suffered the same fate of every show. By Sunday afternoon, it felt like very much like, you ever been to a party and like in the 8th hour of the party, things start to look like, it's like, what's going on? It's like bottles everywhere and cigarette butts everywhere, and the couch is upside down. You're like, what's happening here? That's what happened in the card section. People have packed up early. The dealers packed up early. Things started looking really like weird in that section. And so, because I think some dealers did okay and some dealers did not. I heard dealers paid up to $800 a table. And so if they had 3 tables, that's a lot of money. And everyone brought high-end stuff because they assumed this was going to be like the National. Everything's in slabs, everything is high-end. And then it turns out the people that haven't collected cards in 30 years are telling me stuff like, yeah, I walked over to the card part, like, whoa, like $5,000 card, like, that's crazy. And I knew that a lot of them were New York dealers or New York area shops. And by Sunday, they had brought other inventory. They were like dollar boxes had shown up. I'm like, because they realized we can't move the high end stuff. We got to bring some cheaper stuff too for kids and for other people. So that was interesting in terms of the card part of the show.
So, if you don't mind that I take the floor for a moment.
No, go
Please.
for it. We were waiting for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we figured you probably had some commentary, but also maybe some questions
Oh, yeah.
for implementing.
I have all sorts of rain for this parade. No, I'm just kidding.
Buckets.
You may have already talked about this before I jumped on, so stop me if you did. So, an outsider looking in and basically using social media as your TV monitor to kind of see what's going on and watch what's going on. I kind of ran through both sides of everything. The haters feeds that were talking about all of the issues and problems and things like that arose. Honestly, Friday, it was just like one disaster after another was being posted online about the lines being too long and the overcrowding of areas and the overselling of the meet and greet / autograph session / whatever they were. I saw none of that posted online for Saturday and Sunday. So it's almost like they figured out, oh, we screwed up. We need to fix this. So logistics team needs to get together and figure out what the hell to do tomorrow so this doesn't happen again. So if that was the case and that happened, I applaud them for that.
That was the case. And Friday was, Friday was very much like, we don't know. It's like, is this balloon going to fly kind of thing?
Right.
And then you're right. By Saturday, things had been smoothed out for sure. And I knew things were bad because it was on social media. People were upset and were posting on social media about some signers leaving early, the long lines. I saw the long lines, so I can attest to that. So yeah, that's all true.
Yeah, and it was being rolled out as signers leaving early, but I don't think that's really what it was. I think what it ended up happening is they were supposed to be in certain areas at certain times because
Right.
Fanatics had pre-planned them like, okay, you're going to talk on this panel, and then you're going to be over here signing autographs, and then you're going to be
But
over here
things would
doing
run
pictures.
over. Things
Yeah.
would run
And
over.
so
Yeah.
they were like, this person's got to go. Like, we got to take them
Yeah.
over here, take them over here. And
Yeah.
then all these people
Yeah.
were like left in the lurch, standing around like, well, what the heck just happened? So I think that was part of the problem.
Right.
I heard all of the stuff about Travis Scott. Like when he showed up at the table to sign the autographs and stuff like that, it was just like massive people just trying to scramble just to get right there. And people were getting pushed out of the way and knocked over, and little kids were getting like,
That was at the Topps booth. Yeah, that became like that didn't make any sense. And
yeah.
and because you have a person on a mini stage in front of this corporate area that looked like a silver spaceship essentially with a Topps logo, and he's standing there, and you can barely see the top of his head, and then you have like what seemed like hundreds of people crowding around, and it was dangerous. And that was a bit of a choke area because right across from the top stage was this gigantic WWE belt that everyone was taking pictures of in front of. And so all of a sudden you're trying to cut through the show in this middle area, and it was a perfect rectangle, so it was easy to remember where everything was. But that became a bit of a disaster. I mean, look, Travis Scott is like a huge celebrity. I mean, he was arrested in Paris during the Olympics because he was so mad at his security detail for not protecting him that he actually was beating up on one of the security guards, and the French police arrested him and they let him go eventually. There was security around him, but then at one point they were throwing packs of cards, and that gets a little bit like you got to be careful, and there were a lot of state troopers in the building because I was telling Sal it's state property. But yes, you're right, like things got a little hinky there. And also on the panel session when he was on the panel with Michael Rubin, people were running to be first into the theater to see him because there was all the panels, there were no, like, you couldn't buy tickets for the panels, like it was first come first serve. And in the future, yeah, in the future they might say, to limit stampedes, they might say, oh, you want to see somebody, that's another $50. If you think about it, if you do that, you can make a lot more money. But you're absolutely right. The Travis Scott that was Saturday. He was the most popular person by far, but it could have been dangerous. They got lucky. Nothing really bad happened.
When I saw that, all I could think of was, the song "Heavy Metal" by Sammy Hagar. The line in there, we've got up front fanatics tearing down the barricade to reach the stage. That's like all I could think of when I saw that, like immediately
Right.
thought of those lyrics in my head. We've got up front fanatics. Like that's dead on. And like
Right.
people plowing each other over just to get up there. Okay. So logistically speaking, okay, I get it. You're putting on something that no one's ever put on before. So you got to figure it out. And I would definitely give props to them for figuring a lot of that stuff out. The card area, the what they call it, the hobby
Hall.
Okay,
Hall.
hobby hall. Yes. From what I saw, it looked like all the setups, all the tables and everything were all uniform. Like everybody was the same.
Yeah, okay, so that's a good point, and it looked really sleek. I got there so early that they hadn't even set up yet. So basically, all the tables had black tablecloths, and all the cases were black framed. Fanatics gave everyone the cases to use, so you didn't have to bring your own case. So if you're not a bad idea. They have the money to do that. So everybody basically there was uniformity, which I was not against necessarily. But by the second day, people had put their own drapes and curtains, and logos. So things didn't look so uniform on day 2, I thought. But yes, you're absolutely right. All the cases were the same, all the tables were the same.
See that if you're going to brand something, I mean, that's obviously the way to do it. If you're going to set it up that way to have, uniformity across the board. I did hear you say you brought up like $800 a table.
Yeah.
I heard some dealers were paying three grand for a spot out there on that floor.
Well, no, because they had like 3 tables maybe.
Okay.
Because someone told me they paid $3,600 and they had like 3 tables. So I'm like, well, if you do the math, that's about $800 a table.
$1,200.
$1,200 a table.
Yeah, 1,200.
Yeah.
But some people had multiple tables because one table you can fit like maybe 2 cases. And we all know people have more than that. So everybody had like 3 tables, it seemed.
Well, and that's the thing. With it being ultra modern, mostly ultra modern cards, and your comment
Right.
about, people that have been out of the hobby walking in and being like $10,000 cards, like what?
Right.
Yeah. If
Right.
you're at a show and it costs you $3,000 to set up at the table and you sell one of your
Right.
$15,000-$20,000 cards,
Oh,
well, there
well,
you go. You covered your table.
that's why you can't have dollar boxes, because if you make
Yeah.
$36 on Saturday, how are you gonna make you're not
Right.
gonna you're not even gonna get close
Right.
to breaking even, and that's the problem. So you charge too much, and then you expected I think they didn't know what to expect. The other interesting thing was a lot of card shops I know in the New York area had tables, and I know for a fact they never set up anywhere. And I said to somebody, "I'm really surprised that these stores have tables." And this guy that was there goes, "Of course they have tables. They're afraid of losing their allocation." He goes, "Of course they're gonna come.
Mm.
They want to support Fanatics, because Fanatics will say, 'Oh, really? In our time of need, you didn't buy a table. We're gonna put your name on a list.'" I mean, I don't know, but that's what I think. And so there was a lot of that, like, you help me, I help you. I think some places, some people lost money. It didn't matter. A lot of the places were shops around the country that I never seen at the National or any other show. And I'm thinking, like, why are these people here? And then it made sense. It's like, oh well, they get allocation, they get Topps baseball, they get they're gonna get basketball soon, they have football, what they're gonna get football soon. Like they get boxes and other stuff. And so they were there.
The overall impression I got, and I think I heard you bring this up, it seemed like the biggest pump the tire event is really what it was.
Yeah.
Everybody's jump on the bandwagon. Everybody's got to put out the support for whatever reason. Maybe it's in your contract. It's you're afraid of allocation, like you said, all of that kind of stuff. Let me ask this. I know there was some presence of like breaking, like live breaking, and I think they were using the Fanatics Live platforms for that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Was the section of that in the hobby section, or was it in like the experience kind of area?
No, in the hobby section, there was a little stage that in the middle that you can sit, all around, and they were doing breaks there and other panel discussions that were separate from the big panels that were happening in front of 2,500 people in a different theater in the building. But again, it was in the hobby area. So to care about it, you had to be in the hobby area. If they had put that in the other section, that might have been smarter, because there was no commingling. That's the
That's
thing.
the impression I
And
got
so,
by watching stuff,
yeah,
is there wasn't a
two
whole lot
separate
of
sh
it. And,
right,
and
there's 2 separate shows happening in the
yeah,
same roof under one roof.
and it seemed like a lot of it was like I was saying about the scheduling thing and moving people around. It seemed like anytime you would see clips or and I don't know, these could have been pieced together at different times, but you'd see people taking pictures in the hobby area. I mean, it looked busy, but it didn't look like shoulder to shoulder jam packed busy, until you would then see the pictures and video of when they send Tom Brady over to the hobby center with his entourage of security guards. And then all of a sudden he's bringing 100 people with him because they all want to film
Yes,
him and see what he's doing. And he's at some
right,
dealer table talking to a dealer. Or
right,
I think I saw a video of like Gronk doing the same thing where he like takes a graded card and just smashes it on the table and
right,
breaks his card out of it and signed it like right there on
right.
the spot. And there's just people all around it. It's like a mass of people. And I'm thinking, are there this many people in there? Or is it just when they're dragging everybody over to like, hey, we're here?
Yeah, no, there were people, but you're right. All of a sudden, if you saw a swarm of people, you knew, oh, in that swarm,
Yeah, somebody's in
in the
there.
middle of all that security, there's someone famous walking in, and you could probably see, and I would see, I think, oh yeah, it's Peyton Manning. Oh yeah, that's Travis Scott. Oh, that's Jay-Z. So they did this thing where they did this thing called the 40/40 Club, which was this elevated kind of high-end VIP
It was
area
like Jay-Z's
that you
club,
could
right?
see. Yeah, it was Jay-Z's club, but you can look into the area. It was like a balcony, but that was the place to hide the celebrities.
Hmm.
Because if Gronk is walking in the hall and he's being assaulted, in quotes, by people, security, he has to leave the building. So it's like, you know what? Let's get him in the club. Let's, he goes upstairs. You can see him. He sees you, but you can't get in there. And he's safe, because that was the thing. They really wanted to protect what they were calling the talent. Like, for example, on my lanyard, it said press. Most people said general admission. There said talent. and you want to keep the talent happy because they won't come back next year. And I think a lot of them were doing this kind of as like a favor to Michael Rubin. It's like, hey, I mean, they were being paid, don't get me wrong, but it's like, can you come on Saturday and be on a panel and then walk the showroom floor and throw cards at people? And they're like, sure, for you, Mike, anything, and they do it. And so that's what this was about. This was about, I'm bringing my friends out. I'm a big shot. And this was what they were selling. It was interesting. This is a big party for you, the fans. I mean, Tom Brady said that on stage. He goes, what they're doing here is so great to celebrate you. And I'm thinking the whole time, I'm like, I thought we're celebrating you guys. Like, we're all here for you. Like, we're all here to see you. Instead, you're making it sound like this is a party for, hey, you guys are into sports. You love sports. You love memorabilia. You love cards. And we're having a big event for you. And I'm like, that's pretty genius to say that this is for you, because people are paying $60 to get in here for the day. That doesn't include
Jeez.
autographs, doesn't include
Yeah, that was just admission.
photo op.
Right.
That's just to get in the building. So for example, if you're a card collector, you would never go to this just for the cards, because why would they pay $60 to go to a card show when I can go to my church basement card show for $5 or $1 or free? Like, it doesn't make sense.
Well, especially since the East Coast National was going on at the same time.
Right.
Yeah.
I have no idea. I mean, I have no idea what happened there, but you're right. Like, that's the thing. There's a situation where it's like, no one pays $60 to go to a card show unless you're planning to buy a $10,000 card. But if I'm going to go to a show and spend $34 at the dollar box, I paid more to get in this building. And nobody had cards that you haven't seen before. Let's be honest. I mean, they're on eBay, they're on ComC, they're everywhere. It's not like, oh, I have to go to the show. That's the thing. So the 10xing the hobby, okay, that's gonna have to wait a little longer, because people have to get used to whatever this is. And like oil and water, it's not mixing. The people that were really into it, I thought, were the wrestling fans, because they dressed up like they always do, and they enjoyed it because they're more used to that. But there were people dressed up like baseball players, and I thought it was ridiculous. I'm like, you dressed up like Pete Alonso to buy cards, really? Like everyone had a jersey on, but once you're wearing the pants and the stirrups, then you're like crossing a transom there. Like, you're, if you're a kid, it's fine. But like, if you're like a 50-year-old man, and like, why are you dressed like Tom Brady? But like, one guy was dressed like the Iron Sheik. I thought it was the Iron Sheik. I was like, that's cool. But that's wrestling. It works for wrestling. It doesn't work for hockey, So,
I think because wrestling, you're playing a character, and
right.
and so it's like cosplay, or like Halloween or whatever, right? And
Yeah.
with sports, it's like you're pretending, you're like imitating being somebody. I think that's what's kind of odd. Like, I'll give you like what we should do, the three of us, because there's three of us. Next national, we should go as the Hanson brothers. Because now you laugh, right? But that would work, right? Because people will be like, "Oh, the Hanson brothers," and even though
you have the glasses already, so we're good to go.
most hockey fans know that like they were based on the Carlson brothers, actual real hockey players. The Hanson brothers are kind of like this exaggerated, over the top version of, well, maybe not that exaggerated, but you know what I mean, right? Like, they're characters in a movie. That would be funny. I think it would be funny. But I saw that picture that you took of a guy dressed as a baseball player, and
Yeah.
I'm thinking, what I would do if I had the baseball uniform, I'd dress as one of those baseball furies from the movie The Warriors. Remember that had the theme gangs, all the different.
Right.
You've seen that movie, right?
I haven't
Yeah.
seen that since I was a kid.
Accurate depiction of New York's gang scene in 1979, would you say, or no?
Right. Yeah, like, but it's a little over the top. It's like gangs meets Kiss, like,
Right. Well, no,
yeah.
I'm just saying, like, I like the idea of doing something sports related that's also kind of fun or pop culture-y. I wouldn't want to just be like, I'm in an Oilers jersey and I'm Wayne Gretzky, because that's just kind of, to go to a sports show and to wear a jersey. I think that's the fun thing. And when Tim and I started hanging out like over 10 years ago, and we'd go to these shows, like, I would wear like my Quebec Rafales jersey, or like my Chicago Wolves jersey, or like my old school Pittsburgh Penguins jersey that had Pittsburgh diagonal. You know what I mean? Because I'm just like, yeah, it's a hockey jersey and it's fun and I want to wear that sort of thing. But I didn't want to wear like a full uniform.
Yeah, the cosplay aspect of it, that's straight out of the Comic-Con playbook. And yeah, I understand why they did it to try to spice things up. And they were giving out prizes for like different costumes. I saw that person that dressed up like the Bills fan being smashed through the table is like the
Right.
one that won like the grand prize, which was like tickets to a whole bunch of stuff.
All tickets to like the NBA
Yeah, like
finals, the
everything.
like the Super Bowl,
Yeah,
like
right,
everything.
right,
Right, right, right,
right.
right. Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, you brought up the wrestling thing,
Yeah.
and what I was going to say was that seemed to me to be like the most over the top and crazy and highly popular and interactive part of it was everything
It
wrestling.
was.
Even
Yeah.
I forget if it was the New York Times or somebody. I mean, it was like a major newspaper basically put out there that yeah, it was a successful show, but the only like event type things that actually completely sold out of tickets were all the ones that involved like WWE stars and stuff like that. And all the videos and everything I saw, like the little, you could come out to an entrance theme and do whatever and stuff. That was kind of cool. Plus, I saw a lot of videos of like the players, the talent, the wrestling talent,
The
sitting on
talent.
panels and answering questions and just being normal people, which I mean they are, but they're actors and athletes at the same time. So
We mentioned earlier that Ty Domi did one of the panels, and he wore the lanyard that said talent on it. I go, only talent this guy has is punching people in the face, and shooting a puck. But it was interesting because some people got dressed up like super fans, like they had you see at a tailgate, but they weren't there to buy cards, and that was the weird part. At one point, I went to the bathroom, I come out of the stall, and there's a guy who's clearly a New York Giants football fan. He's applying his like blue face makeup, and I looked at him and I was like, I'm on another planet here. Like, it's like when you go to a woman's bathroom and women are putting an eyeliner on. I'm like, this guy is getting into whatever character he thinks he is, and so you don't see that at a card show every day.
like he's one of those crazy end zone people.
Yeah, exactly. With the wig that's like
Yeah,
red and white and blue, and he's got the face paint, and he's got like what looks like zebra colored pajamas on that are like Giants colors, and like
he's got his
Zubaz!
Zubaz.
yeah, yeah, he's gonna be in the end zone, but he's just walking around the show because it's the Comic Con of sports, right? So
I miss my Zubaz. Again, from an outsider looking in and going into it, I had all these expectations of this thing and stuff, and then after seeing a lot of it, I knew it wasn't going to be a card show per se, but
right,
it was well above, I think, what I even expected it to see
same.
as an outsider. I expected it to be more of, hey, we're going to have a few panel discussions and guys are just going to be in an autograph pavilion and signing autographs. That's what I assumed it was going to be.
Yeah, that's why I wasn't really looking forward to it. I said that a couple weeks ago. So I was like, well, it's yet another card show. And then I spent the first day in the hobby part, the second day in the interactive part, and then the third day I kind of was at that point I was like kind of done with it. But like I said, it was good and bad. But I'll leave you with this image. And it's very New York, I think. So when the dealers had packed up and there was like 2 hours left in the show, there were people who took over these tables who were like, "Hey, I'm selling wax and Funko Pops," and this guy was selling these blaster boxes that they were giving out that they were selling at Fanatics Fest that were basically Topps Chrome, a special Fanatics Fest NYC edition, which meant that some of the cards had the New York skyline on them, and those cards were selling for a decent amount of money on eBay. This guy is standing there with a bunch of those blasters on an empty showcase. He's standing there with a baseball jersey on, totally unbuttoned, nothing underneath but chest hair, and a cigar in his mouth, going like, "I'm selling blasters." And I go, "Yeah," I go, "The show's over." Like, I go, "It's time to go home." Like, it was like someone hit the lights on the way
I
out because
got blasters. I got blasters here.
yeah, I got blasted. See, I'm like, first of all, you can't smoke in there. He wasn't fully clothed.
Well, was it
He
lit or
didn't
was
buy
he
that
just chewing
table.
on it?
Maybe he was chewing on, but I'm like, this guy's breaking like 5 laws in one spot here. I walked right past him and I was like, I think the show is over. I think it's time to go. It's like another hour and a half to go. I think the show is winding
You're
down.
like the fat
You
lady
know,
is singing, literally.
yeah, yeah. And so I was like, with a smile on my face and pain in my feet, I was like, I'm out of here and whatever. Maybe this will be back. That's the other thing too. Nobody was calling it the first annual. I don't know what the plans are. I mean, they're gonna have some regional version of these. They don't even know what this is going to be, I think.
Yeah.
Now, will it be every year in August in New York? Maybe. Though I will admit, New York in August is not a great time because people are on vacation. I actually was quite surprised how many people showed up in the end. So the hype is there. I know people who didn't go who said, oh, if it comes back, I want to go because I'm curious. So they've got people's interest here. So
Yeah, I heard the Pittsburgh thing, I heard the Orlando thing, and then I heard like the big one is going to be in LA.
right.
I think I saw a
The
banner
big
or
one.
something about that.
This was a small one. Basically the New York version on the West Coast, probably.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that should placate the people in California who are like, how come the shows never come to us in California, right? Well,
Right.
you're going to get a Fanatics Fest, and that's what you get because the National is going to be in Chicago the next 3 years. Booyah! I think we should move on and talk about Synergy, while we still have some attention span left. 23-24 Synergy Hockey. Guys, good with us transitioning to our other topic for today?
Let's do it.
Yeah, all right. So, quick rundown. Synergy right now selling for about $110 per box. This is 23-24 Synergy hockey cards. You get 8 packs per box. You get 3, count them, 3 cards per pack. So you get 24 cards in a box. Each box guarantees that you'll get either a numbered base card, an autograph, or a tech card. And tech cards are a pet peeve of mine because it's like, oh, we put a little foil on it and it's a tech card and it's special and it's one per box, right? And it's like, no, I want an autograph. If I'm spending over $100 on a box of cards, I want an autograph. Don't put a little foil on it and say, ooh, it's a tech card. It's special, right? Because you're just telling me that it's special. It's not. So another thing real quick, just a breakdown of the set. So the weird thing about Synergy, and this like flew over my head last year or 2 years ago, or when I started opening this product. The base cards, so the veterans and the rookies, are numbered. They're like ridiculously low numbered. So the veterans and legends numbered 1 through 75, those cards are numbered out of 14 copies, which makes no sense because you would think if something was serial numbered 14, that would be considered the parallel version. But nope, they're saying that's the base version. The rookies, which are numbered 76 to 125, plus another 6 rookie cards after that, which they don't use numbers, they use like letters. So you got up to, we'll just say 76 to 125, and then the 6 beyond that, those are numbered out of 24. So the additional 6 rookies are Adam Fantilli, Connor Bedard, Connor Zary, Logan Cooley, Ligo Carlson, Simon Nemec. And so those cards have like an R prefix. So like Bedard is like RCB. And just to give a few quick stats on that particular card, because obviously people are going to want the Connor Bedard. So 2 Bedard Synergy rookie cards, the ones that are numbered out of 24, sold on eBay not too long ago. One sold on June 29th for $1,215. Another sold on July 14th for $1,200 even. Mind you, these don't have autographs. These are just numbered out of 24. Now, the red version, which I'd like to call the base version, but it's not, but the red version is selling for between 125 and 200. That's not numbered. Most of the cards that you get in the pack are these red versions, and 50% of the ones that you'll get will have a scratch off area on the back. They call that the codes version, the red codes. And what you do is you scratch those off, you enter in the number. Well, first you have to get all 125 cards with the codes. Scratch it off, go to the Upper Deck Bounty website, input it, and then you could get like the gold set. And that's for only the first 25 people who redeem those codes. And then after that, I guess you you go, oh, okay, well, my Wayne Gretzky card has a little scratch off area on the back. Whoop-de-doo, right? So there's parallels, there's inserts. We'll talk about those later. I'm just wondering first if you guys have any thoughts about Synergy, either this year or just in general, because Tim, I know it's a set you're not really a big fan of.
You want me to go first? Or you want Clemente to go first?
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Yeah, Synergy's garbage. No, it's fine. So I've never been like the biggest Synergy fan. I like the concept, but I don't know. They keep rolling it out over and over and over again. I feel like this was one of those products where it should have been like a 1 or 2 and done kind of thing, and then come back with it later on. But the whole idea of the design of the card, it's supposed to be a tech-oriented type card. And that's fine. You know, the cards are acetate, they're multi-layered. I'm sure they're super expensive to print and produce. But what ends up happening with Synergy every year? It's a staple on EPAC. And once it hits EPAC, it's the race to the bottom again. So, you know, I end up picking up singles of these and stuff pretty cheap once they're out there for a while, including some of the quote-unquote base cards with the lower serial numbers. Because a lot of times they'll sell for even less. What I will say is this year's set, there's a few things that I like in this set. And I don't know if you want me to bring them up now. They're some of the inserts.
Go for it.
Like the flammable, they look silly, but for some reason I like them. Because they kind of look like a sticker that you would, like a, what do you call them? The like
like a warning sticker?
Yeah, like the S.
Like on one of those like fire extinguisher type
Yes,
things.
exactly.
Yeah.
MSDS?
MSDS, yes. I couldn't think of the word.
And I only know that because I built a website for a company that made chemicals.
Yes.
And they had to put their MSDS listings for
Right.
each product. Okay, so that's
exactly what I was trying to think of, and I couldn't think of it because
yeah.
I've been gone from retail for so long. I forgot what the acronym was. But yeah, so the flammable ones, they have like flammable across the top written in like flames, and then the players like superimposed over top of like the flammable sign that you would see on like a tanker truck. And then it says underneath, you know, caution, flammable. These players have explosive talent. Explosive. And it's, I don't know. They're different. I haven't seen anything like that. But the thing that really like drives that for me, the Star Quest.
Yes.
Because this year's Star Quest design is the 98 design, which I still believe to this day was the best design of the Star Quest cards.
Was there another? Because this is the only one I know of. This is the only one I've see at shows and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, they did Star Quest on other years too, but they're less than stellar like those. The 98, 99 Star Quest that came in UD Choice back in the day, with the blue base ones, and then there's green and red and gold. They look really cool. And this is basically the straight up same design. It's just they went with serial numbering on the golds, and there's also autograph versions of them.
All of them. The blue ones, I got a blue one, which is the easiest one to come by, and those are numbered out of 199. Yeah, okay. I'm as surprised as you. And I'll say this really quick just about Star Quest, as long as we're on that topic. Like, when I pulled this card, I was just like, oh, cool. But then now I'm like, oh, this is probably my tech card. Because everything else that I got is just like a standard insert. Well, I mean, I got some serial numbered stuff. I was actually really happy about this. And then it kind of made me think a little bit about like Full Force. Like, I know that's like a 10-year-old or almost 10 years back. But I think when you say like, well, first you said it's a garbage product.
I was kidding, sort of.
I know, but I think what it is that there's a lot of redundancy and there's a lot of other sets that kind of do the same thing better. So let me just give a quick, for instance here. There are see-through parts of this card because it's acetate. But then it's also a layered card, right? There's 2 different levels. So like the upper part of it is like printed out of foil board, but then it's got like die cut with see-through areas. And then there's like silver foil. So we got foil board, silver foil, red acetate, right? And I look at something like this and I think about like that EX hockey set that's supposed to come out at the end of summer. Well, we're kind of at the end of summer, but that EX set. And I go, how is this not redundant of something that's going to be coming out and is going to be better? I know Upper Deck wants to make as many products as possible and keep people buying stuff, but I think what it's like, you go, yeah, this is a little bit like another product that's going to come out and probably be better received. It just seems a little silly or a little, I keep saying redundant, but I do think a lot of these cards are redundant of each other.
So what you're saying about the design with some acetate and so on and so forth, the overall design is very similar from one year to the next to the next to the next since the first year this came out. And that's why I'm saying, like, maybe it's a little stale. Maybe they should spice it up. But maybe that's what the gimmick is of this. Like, it's going to look similar each year. Like the acetate design that's on the left side of the right side of the card, it's kind of die cut the same way as it has been in a lot of the years, it seems like. And it's hard to distinguish and set them next to each other and be like, okay, that's a 19 and that's a 21 and that's a 23 and that's a, I don't know. Like I said, I feel like Synergy is one of those products that could have been put in as an e-pack product and left that way, maybe. But I get it. And again, I like the inserts. I haven't seen one, so maybe you pulled one. But one of the insert sets is called "Let's Go exclamation point.
Well, okay, there's a little bit of discrepancy there because I've seen it "Let's Go" with 3 O's and "Let's Go" with 4 O's. Like on the card, it's got 3 O's, but the checklist on Trading Card DB, which usually pulls from official sources, has 4 O's. As long as it doesn't have 2 O's, because that would be "Let's Go," and that's something different.
Interesting.
So
I think the sell sheet or I think the sell page that Beckett puts out there.
Yeah.
I think it had 8 O's.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I thought that was going to be the one that was going to make you, throw your phone at your computer or whatever. Like, it's garbage. Hate this. Let's go.
That's why I said, I was like, are you kidding me right now? Like they actually.
That's one of your overused hobby phrases.
It absolutely is.
Yeah. So now it's something that the breakers would say, and now that's become part of the vernacular, and now it's become an insert set.
I think we need to potentially add that to the Bad Hockey Card Hall of Fame, just because something from one.
Yeah, we'll have to find one that's particularly bad. There's a lot of bad inserts, but it has to be like a bad card. Like when I inducted the remember the Thermal Threats?
Mm-hmm. Speaking of Full Force.
Yeah. I inducted the Andrew Hammond one because he looked like the annoying orange because he had like a half smile. It was just kind of funny. I gotta tell you, like I have mixed feelings about Synergy. Because I like some of the inserts. I like that a lot of the inserts are serial numbered. Now, granted, a lot of inserts, even with low serial numbers, don't sell for much. You look at something and you go, oh, this should be a $10 card, and it's like $3. And you go, really? It's numbered out of $199. There's less than 200 of this card. But yeah, hockey collectors, I mean, if it's a popular player, yeah, probably. But like one insert I liked this year that I thought they did really well, I liked it better than last year's version of this, was the Light Up the Night inserts. Because this has just got this really 80s vibe to it. First of all, it's got like a foil board background, but then the player is printed on matte. Like he's got like a matte coat to him, so he's not foily. He's got like that spot varnish, like SP authentic cards do. You know how the player has like the spot varnish, and then he's like kind of fading to black at the bottom, and then you got this like Light Up the Night logo that looks like it's made out of neon lights, and then this background piping, which kind of reminds me of like, if you remember the old TV show Max Headroom, which he was supposed to be like this computer generated character, and he had like these weird neon lines in the background and stuff. So I definitely get this 80s vibe from it. Again, I'm going to say I always wish they push it a little bit further, but I look at this and I go, this is a cool looking insert. I like it. I think this was a good one. I think this was definitely a hit. And then you have Star of the Show, which kind of looks like a marquee sign outside of a movie theater. And it's got like tons of foil on the sides and around the top, and it's got like that old school like theater marquee sign. There's one called Fearless Leaders, which is kind of interesting because it has like a quote printed on like the acetate part. I don't know if it's something that the player himself said, but again, it's an interesting design. I mean, and then of course there's like the rookie journeys, which is just another reason to make rookie cards or rookie year cards. Sorry. There's 2030, which I guess is supposed to be like Team 2030, which, those are just kind of okay. They're just like standard foily cards that, you could pull this in an Upper Deck Series 2 product and it wouldn't seem out of place there. So it doesn't really feel unique to this. And then there's our favorite Cranked Up, which is printed on acetate and is serial numbered for what it's worth. Probably about $3 on ePack, but you get the idea. So that kind of summarizes the cards I got in my box. Oh, and Thrill Rides. Yeah, and then of course I got my Star Quest Kirill Kaprizov numbered out of 199, and that was like my favorite card in the box. That and the Light Up the Nights. I mean, you said that these end up going for pretty cheap on ePack. I might actually just try to complete a set of those. Probably 100 cards in that set, which then I go, do I really want to spend that much money on an insert set? But for this, I might, because I think when you have a fun design, it's kind of worth tracking those down. So, okay, I think I said everything I wanted to say about that.
You brought up the bounty cards with the scratch offs on the back.
Yep.
So this came out, first week of June?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, there's none left.
No, of course not. I mean, all 25 bounties are going to be sucked up that first week because you're going to have breakers breaking the product, selling the big hits, and then setting aside the red codes cards and building the set and then redeeming them. So yeah, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, the gold parallels, which is the base set rookies you get with the gold parallels, plus the 36 cast for greatness. Those are all gone, and so are the regular gold parallels. 0 remaining. So when you go to the site to put yours in, everything's grayed out. So there you go. And again, it's a product that's going to be on ePack. So all the missions are done. Now, ePack generally has its own missions for things to do, but I just find that interesting that more and more as product comes out and they have these bounty type things, within the first couple weeks, they're gone.
Well, that's the whole point of the bounty, is to get people to
buy the product, hype it up.
To buy it, hype it, and then sell out of it. Otherwise, why make it? And I have some issues with the product in the sense that the price point is affordable. We got $110, $120 a box, but the cards masquerade as a high-end product in some ways. And it does all the things that I hate about hockey collecting, which is it's got these numbered cards that are not worth much. And it just seems contrary to what other sports do. I mean, any card that's up to 99, that card should be worth, I don't know, thousands. And it's not. And I don't really understand as to why, because you're right. They're expensive to make. There's high production value here. I like acetate, but I'm disappointed to find out it's like up to 99 and it's like a $3 card. I'm like, oh, so what am I doing here? Like, don't put the numbers on it then. Maybe that would make it more valuable. I mean, there's Bedard cards in this set that are numbered to like $9.99 and they're going for like $50. I'm like, okay. But Young Guns cards, there's a gajillion of those. We don't need to rehash that.
Right.
Because it's the brand, it's the name, but that annoys me. And Sal knows this because I bring it up almost every time I see him at a show. If this was National Treasures and it was not up to 99, or the Cup or anything high end of any sport, there's only 99 of these cards. And if you grade it and you get a 10, there might be single digits of these cards now. And you telling me it's only worth $100, $200, maybe? And so that frustrates me. And I know that's not Upper Deck's problem. That's a secondary market problem. But I don't know this product seems to feed into that more than any other one I know and that Upper Deck produces.
When I've sold synergy cards at shows, nobody goes, oh, cool. If it's a player that somebody collects, like, I'll just throw out an example, like a base red card of Igor Shesterkin, somebody will buy that because they collect Igor Shesterkin. But they're going to see like a thrill rides of Connor McDavid. They're not going to buy it unless they're a McDavid collector. You know what I mean? That's the thing. I'm like looking at like this light up the night, and I just did a quick count. There's like 45 non-rookies, and then I think like 55 rookies, if my count was correct. But like most of those people are not going to even look at, you know what I mean? Because it's just another insert set that people go, there's too many inserts. Am I really going to piece together a 45, 55 card insert set or both of them at 100 cards? No, probably not, unless, you really like it. And that's the thing is like, whether they number it or don't number it, it doesn't really affect the collectability. It only seems to affect it when it's that really high end stuff, the numbered rookie cards, the numbered autographs, or very low numbered. When you're talking like 10 or 5, then there's like some demand there for like even like the lesser cards because it's such a low number. But yeah, you're numbered out of 999. I'm going to be actually really curious to see what those light up the nights. The 999 version. I don't need the pink version or the green version. I'll just get the whatever the cheapest version is, and then just try to snap all those up best I can.
If you look at how the previous years with like the road to the Stanley Cup ones, or the the road to the playoffs, and I think it was like the road to the postseason, the road to the playoffs, the road to the Stanley Cup, or whatever. Those were numbered 999, 799, and 599, I think. And I mean, you can buy those for a quarter on ComC now. The thing is, 14. Where did they come up with that number? Why are we numbering these to 14? What is 14? What's the significance of that?
I don't know, but like 24, I get it because it's 23-24. But I remember when Beckett was making up its rules or remaking its rules, and I remember when it made like a big deal about like the Sidney Crosby, was it his cup rookie that was numbered out of 99 in 05-06?
Probably. I mean, most of them are.
Jim, I'm asking you, Mr. Penguins fan.
Like, I don't have that crap. That's too rich for my blood.
I'm going to stick it to superfan number 66 over here, to quote a movie.
I mean, it's probably out of 99 because that's how most of them are.
And I remember that, like, Beckett, then they, like, said, well, we now decree that a rookie card must be numbered out of 99 or more. If it's less than 99 copies, then it's an insert card, right? And they also, like, made a ruling on, like, the McDonald's rookie card. Is it a rookie card or not a rookie card? It's a food issue, but it came in a pack, and they deemed that it was a rookie card.
I know somebody that would call that a rookie card.
I know a lot of people who would and a lot of people who wouldn't. But it's like 24. Yeah, I don't know where 14. Sorry, that's an insert. You know what? I opened a box. I got 8 of these red cards. As far as I'm concerned, the red cards are the base cards because I have a fistful of them. And the ones with the scratch offs on the back, those can be variants. But the ones that are out of 14, it's like, that's what they're telling us, but we can rewrite the narrative.
I mean, maybe we're overthinking this. Like, I'm looking on eBay.
Totally.
I'm looking on eBay. Light Up the Night is a great design. I agree. And like the Bedard one, numbered to $4.99, sold for $32 Canadian, and the one to $9.99 sold for $9.99. These are sold.
Wow, that's in my wheelhouse.
So, I mean, like, you want to get a really cool Bedard card. It's in his rookie year, the great design, numbered to even $9.99. You get that graded. And while that's great for us, because we can add that to our collections, I wish it was worth more. Because, I don't know, maybe I'm stuck on this numbering thing, because in every other sport, in every other, even in the flagship, if it was numbered to $4.99, let's say, if it existed, that would be like, wow, that's an amazing, like, that's a great pull. And here it's like, it doesn't matter. Like, it's the difference between $3 and $30. I'm like, okay, but I'd pay more for a box if I thought that the market, the secondary market, would care for these. And maybe because there's so many products, there's a glut of them that by the time they get to like June, people are like, oh, okay, enough. Like I've already bought like, or I've already tried to chase like 900 Bedard rookies. Like I don't even know what light up the night means. Like I don't care anymore. Like I'm already thinking about next year, and somebody else, other crop of rookies, maybe, or maybe it's just synergy is just not something people love, but they sell enough of it that they make it every year.
Yeah, I think that there's just so much product out there that people's loyalties are just split. I mean, look,
Yeah.
I hate to bring up the old days of 30, 40 years ago, but there was only a couple of sets. It was a little bit easier. I mean, all right, let's use like baseball as an example, or even football. What football cards were there in 1990? There was Pro Set, Score, Upper Deck didn't start till 91, I think.
And tops. Yeah.
Tops, right? There was a few sets that there was some competition, but there was enough. It was just, I don't say enough. There was a lower amount. Now it's just like, oh, I want to collect Connor Bedard cards. Well, which ones? There's so many of them, right? There's hundreds of them. Like every time a set comes out, there's like another 40, 50 Bedard cards, not counting his Easter egg card where there's just one in that set. But it's like you give people too much to collect and they're just not going to care about 80% of it.
And I'm sorry, an Upper Deck could say, you know what, we don't care about the resale, and they don't technically. They don't care what it
They
goes.
shouldn't.
They should. They do like we make a good product or good line of products, and we sell them, and then what you people do with them is your business. If this Bedard card is worth $9, then it's worth $9. That's what the market wants for it. I
Right.
just think it should be worth more. And usually it's funny. Usually I'm complaining about cards being too expensive. Like, why is the Young Gun cost so much? It should be less. And here I'm arguing the opposite because in the hobby, across other sports, numbered cards mean something. And this set really puts a spotlight on the fact that maybe it's this set or maybe in some hockey sets, don't worry about the numbering. Don't worry about the acetate or the high production value. This card is worth $10. And you're like, it doesn't make sense and whatever. I mean, we're not going to resolve it here, but I just want to understand. Like you're right. If you put that in a showcase, even a Bedard one, you may sell it, but for $10 or 30. But if you said I want 300, they'd be like, "You would be crazy? It's a synergy card. Like, why would I spend that? I'll go buy Young Guns."
If Upper Deck didn't cross this over into EPAC, you might see that. But I think once
you think that's the thing, the link, right?
It happens with Synergy every year. I mean, Synergy will be out for a while, and that's one product that they wait till later on before it drops onto EPAC. But once it does, I mean, give it 3 months, and then all of that inventory rolls over into ComC, and then again, it's
Right.
I'm undercutting this guy, and I'm undercutting this guy, and so on and so forth until
Right.
you end up with cards that look like they should be $10 or $20, and they're under $1 because there's so many of them. Now, again, these base cards that are numbered that I think we all agree that they're not base cards.
Thank you.
The base cards are more the red, and I understand, but the red ones seem to be more base cards because you get more in a box. Of course, half of them they put the scratch offs on to use for the bounty. Would I want a number card out of 14? Sure. I mean, who doesn't want a low numbered card like that? But you roll out numbered cards out of 14 when the base has 130 some cards and the rookies are out of 24. But, if my numbered card out of 14 ends up being like, I mean, no offense to him, but like if it's Jordan Cairo, I don't care about that. And even out of 14, like that's not for me. Sure, if you're a Blues fan and you like Jordan Cairo, great. If you're his parents and you want to buy that, absolutely. But, and it doesn't even have to be him. It could be somebody else. Like I like Clayton Keller, but I'm not going to be super excited if I pulled his base card out of 14. That's not going to set me over the top. I'm not going to think, oh man, this paid for the box.
Right.
Now, if I got the Bobby Orr one, like one of the legends, or like the Patrick Waugh, or of course the Mario Lemieux, that'd be awesome. But not everyone's a winner, I guess.
Well, and it's funny because like people will post what they got on like Twitter. They'll maybe not with this product, but with like another product. Kind of getting back to what Clemente said, it's like they'll like open a box and they'll say, "This is what I got," and then somebody be like, "Bro, you spent $150, and all those cards that you pulled, you can maybe sell for $30." And that's what's sad about it, is that like you can't really, I don't say make back your money, but you really can't. Either you got a big hit and you go, yeah, this is $1,000 card or a $500 card, or it's like a bunch of quarter and dollar cards.
That's how opening wax is anymore. It's, you either hit big or you're done.
I know, right?
That's true. That's true. I mean, that's true.
And that's too bad. And like I like this set, and I don't like this set. I've said that before. Like there's things that I like. I like some of the inserts. I think there's way too many inserts. I mean, counting the parallels of the inserts, there are 79 insert sets. Now, I mean, there's like Barn Burners and then Barn Burner Spectrum, right? So that's 2. And then there's like Cast for Greatness Purple, Cast for Greatness Signatures, Cranked Up. There's Cranked Up, and then there's black, blue, green, pink, purple, red, and gold Spectrum, which are numbered 1 out of 1. Do we really need that many different cranked up inserts, like parallels of inserts, right? And I don't think that's 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, that's exactly 8, counting the 1 of 1 versions. Have fun putting those in a page. Player collectors. Yeah. Oh, you know what else is back? Glow Shift. That's a good insert because I like glow in the dark.
Glow shifts are cool.
I like glow in the dark cards.
Glow shifts are cool.
Yeah, glow shifts are cool. I kind of wish they were a little bit easier to come by, but whatever. Once upon a time, I was like, I'm going to collect all of these. And then like, I'd look on eBay and like, everybody wants like $40-$50 for them. I'm like, okay, I'm not going to collect all of these. I think I have like a total of 3 over like the past 3 years. I mean, it's hit or miss. The people who like it are gonna buy it. The player collectors are gonna like it because it gives them more players, and it's a relatively tight checklist, with like 75 veterans and legends. So you got like guys like Gretzky and Waugh in there, and like you said, Orr and Lemieux. Actually I got Gretzky and Waugh in my box. I'm like, okay, these are cool for the non-base cards. These are cool. Always happy to have another Gretzky or Waugh card in my collection. Any last thoughts on this as we wrap this up? Because, man, this podcast has gotten long. But it was good. It was so good.
It hasn't been that long. I've only been here 20 minutes.
You've been here like an hour.
Time flies when you're having fun.
Hey, that's good. You're having fun. I'm glad you're having fun. Anything else, Clemente, about Synergy?
No, I mean, it sounded a lot like some of our complaints about extended series, which was parallels and all the other issues that come with that. And I guess as more products are put out and more breakers have to open them, this is the direction they're going in. This is why I buy mostly singles and not boxes anymore, because I just rather have the cards I want as opposed to all the cards I don't want. So I think a lot of people are doing that, and let the breakers do their thing. And you know what? I'm more than happy, like Tim, to go on EPAC, or in my case, ComC, and just get the crumbs that are falling off the table that nobody else wants. I'll take them.
Here for crumb collecting.
Crumb collecting. I've referred to myself as the bailing whale. When the whale just opens its mouth and just eats all the little fish as it swims by, and then it just ejects the water out of its gills, and then you like, just go and like, yeah, that's me on EPAC. 27 cents, 28 cents, 27 cents, 32 cents, and just fill up on that. Well, I think we are all out of podcasts. So we're going to end it here. So thank you for listening to the Puck Junk Hockey Podcast. As always, if you've enjoyed the show, please be sure to like and subscribe. Please be sure, if you can, to leave us a review, because that's always helpful. If you'd like to support this podcast, you can also do so by purchasing a t-shirt at shop.puckjunk.com. And until next time, collect what you like.
For more hockey goodness, follow us on Twitter at PuckJunk.